Coming up in this week's Post-Executive Council media briefing, the Chief Secretary, Orville London, reports on a key issue affecting thousands of workers who are awaiting back pay.
Let me first cut to the chase and deal with the situation with respect to the payment of arrears. As has been indicated, the Tobago House of Assembly finally received the check from the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tobago Development with respect to the arrears of wages and salaries. That check was received according to the information coming from the Chief Administrator at 11 a.m. yesterday. And I just want to put things in perspective because I don't think that one should play politics with the lives and the welfare of people. I want to make it very clear that according to the process, the Ministry of Tobago Development is simply the conduit through which funding from the Ministry of Finance is transmitted to the Tobago House of Assembly. The Ministry of Tobago Development, therefore, only performs an administrative function and not a supervisory function nor a negotiating function. It is simply a conduit. And I think that you'd be aware that over the last 2 or 3 quarters, a very interesting thing has been happening in that unlike previous years, monies transmitted to the Tobago House of Assembly, and I want to say this very slowly, the time spent between the Ministry of Finance and the Tobago House of Assembly has increased significantly over the last year. In other words, the average number of days or weeks that it takes for money leaving the Ministry of Finance to reach the Tobago House of Assembly, that time has increased. In fact, the most blatant example of that was monies for the second quarter to be released in January, which I think you all know did not reach the Tobago House of Assembly until a day or 2 after the election. That said, I want to indicate that now that the funding has been received, I have been speaking to the Chief Administrator, and he has given me the assurance, in fact, he has spent most of today dealing or speaking to the other administrators, that payment in all divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly, payment of arrears should start no later than the end of this month. In other words, by the end of this month, payment should start in all divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly. Obviously, because of the number of workers involved and the extent of the auditing process, all persons will not be paid at the same time. What is happening is that a significant percentage of the sheets have been audited. That information will be transmitted to the Budgets Division, and of course the checks will be prepared. The Chief Administrator has given instructions that this Division of Finance should transmit to the various divisions all the monies which are needed for the payment of all the arrears, so that as the sheets are prepared, audited, checks submitted, persons will be paid. We are expecting, and I have every confidence, that the auditors and the various other officials involved with the process will in fact do everything in their power to ensure that the process is completed as expeditiously as possible. So the bottom line is that the money has finally been made available to the Tobago House of Assembly, and payment will start in all divisions no later than the end of July, so that in the month of August, most of the persons should in fact be paid. I want to put to rest an issue having to do with the relationship between the Tobago House of Assembly and the Ministry of Tobago Development. And I don't wish to expend too much energy in unnecessary conflict with any minister or any ministry. But I have a responsibility to do everything in my power to ensure that the authority and the autonomy of the Tobago House of Assembly is not undermined. And I have every intention of protecting and preserving the autonomy and the authority of the Tobago House of Assembly. The Minister of Tobago Development has made very heavy weather of the fact that he wrote to me as Chief Secretary, and there was no response. I wish to advise that the Minister did in fact write to me on April the 30th, 2013. And the letter read like this: I wish to express concern with a number of issues in the public space on 1, back pay for Tobago House of Assembly workers, 2, increasing the Tobago House of Assembly budgetary allocations, and 3, devolution and internal self-government for Tobago. In light of this, I would like to request a meeting with you on a date mutually convenient to discuss the aforementioned. But this letter has to be placed in context, because a couple of weeks prior to this letter, the Minister of Tobago Development had come to my office to discuss a request from the central government for land under the jurisdiction of the THA to be utilized for the construction of the much vaunted integrated campus. I indicated to the minister that it was insulting for him and the central government to be discussing with the THA the possibility of land being given for a project in which they were not involved, of which they had little information, and which, despite overtures made to the Ministry of Tertiary Education and the then Minister of Tobago Development, they had refused to even explain the concept. In fact, I indicated to him that as far as I was concerned, this was a concept, and investing tens of millions of dollars in a concept which had not been fleshed out, a concept which really, as far as I'm concerned, on which little research was done, to me was irresponsible, maybe even reckless. And his response troubled me, because he indicated to me that he had a mandate from the Prime Minister to come to Tobago and that he was to make that request, and he was carrying out that mandate. I indicated to him that that was not my priority, to carry out any mandate from the Prime Minister, nor do I think that it should be his. He then also insisted, unfortunately I was not alone, that as far as he was concerned, information and communication between the Tobago House of Assembly and the central government should be transmitted through the Ministry of Tobago Development and through him as minister. And I indicated to him that as far as I'm concerned, that is a definite no-no. When the minister wrote this to me, I knew that it was mischief afoot, because he knew at that point in time that I was conducting discussions with the Minister of Finance with respect to the budgetary allocations and the back pay, and that I was discussing with the Prime Minister devolution and internal self-governance for Tobago. And I therefore waited until I had completed these discussions, and I wrote the following correspondence to Dr. Baker on the 2nd of July. And I had no intention of bringing it into the public domain, but I think that in the context of making everything clear, that I should in effect make this correspondence public. And I want to read the entire thing. I refer to your correspondence dated April 30, 2013, and wish to reiterate that I remain committed to the preservation and enhancement of the autonomy of the Tobago House of Assembly. You might recall that at our last meeting, you indicated that your main responsibility was to carry out the mandate and instructions of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. You also insisted that all communication with the central government must be transmitted through you and the Ministry of Tobago Development. Minister, I am still of the opinion that neither of your positions is tenable. The major priority of any representative is to represent his constituents regardless of his other responsibilities. In addition, the Tobago House of Assembly Act mandates that, and I quote, the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary shall hold regular discussions with a view to formulating administrative and legislative mechanisms for the provision of harmony in the affair of Trinidad and Tobago. The Act also makes provision for ministers of government to meet with secretaries in the Tobago House of Assembly to discuss relevant issues. In that context, I wish to advise that discussions on the devolution internal self-government for Tobago are continuing, and I have reported on those discussions to the island and the country. The Assembly awaits the allocation for the payment of arrears to the Tobago House of Assembly, which has been approved in Parliament and should be transmitted by the Ministry of Finance to the Ministry of Tobago Development for disbursement to the Tobago House of Assembly. The Tobago House of Assembly also intends to engage the Ministry of Finance in extensive discussions with respect to increasing the Tobago House of Assembly's budgetary allocation. I am recommending that public figures in Tobago should desist from making statements that could have an adverse effect in the negotiating process. I remain available for future communication. So I want to put that out there so that you all will understand why I had to do things in a particular way. Because I will do nothing. I will do nothing to fuel the ambition of the Minister of Tobago Development to run the Tobago House of Assembly's business from his office. No Chief Secretary in the Tobago House of Assembly has stood for that, and this Chief Secretary will not stand for that. Just a couple other issues that I think are important. I want to commend the Division of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, the Department of Sport. I have been informed that the sports camp has started. My information is that there are close to 1,100 students involved, 4 to 5 separate venues, nine disciplines. And this, of course, means that in discipline like football, cricket, basketball, netball, even swimming, athletics, tennis, a significant percentage of the island's young people will be involved in gainful activity during the holidays. This sports camp has always been quite successful, and I think the management of it improves every year, and I expect that this year will be no exception. The Division of Education has also indicated that the school repairs and refurbishment and upgrading process, that will continue during the holidays. Work has started on quite a number of schools, and 9 secondary, 38 primary and primary schools, and 2 early childhood centers. Some degree of upgrade will be done. It will vary from school to school, the extent, because this is a continuous process. I have indicated to the Secretary that as far as I am aware, one of our priorities is, one, providing quality work, but also ensuring that at the beginning of the school term, we do not have a situation where schools do not open. Because as I told one secretary, when school opens in September, if I'm a reporter, I'm writing my story and look for the school, right? No school in such and such a place. That's my headline. And that is the story, not the schools will open. So we want to get that balance between making sure that we use the holiday time to ensure that the schools are upgraded. As you're aware, there were a number of meetings, and I think some of you would have covered the meeting, but I just want to maybe highlight two aspects in each of the meetings which I would have held. The meeting with the Minister of National Security with respect to the construction of the police stations at Roxborough and Old Grange. It has been 3 years since this whole process was totally disbanded when the new regime came in place, and we have received commitments. This is the third Minister of National Security from whom we have received commitment that the process will restart, or that the process is in progress. And at that meeting was particularly disheartening for us to hear that the process has started over. They're back to the design stage, and that the most optimistic estimate for startup is early 2014. From a situation where in 2010, the contract had been awarded and construction was about to start within months, you now have a situation where the most optimistic estimate is the first quarter of 2014. I also want to put into the public domain that discussions would have also centered on the Tobago Police Bill, which has been mothballed for quite some time, and which we hope we'll be able to resume discussions on it, because it is becoming more and more relevant, especially in light of the challenging security situation in Tobago at this point in time. And then the Marine Sports Bill, which we would have passed in the Tobago House of Assembly some years ago, which was meant to control and to direct and to regulate the marine area, especially just off the coast, just off the beach, where we know that there have been a couple of fatalities, serious injuries, and so on. But that there is increased recklessness on the part of many operators of jet skis and even pirogues that just skim across the waters with no respect for life or limb. And we have to find a way to bring some control to that. It is challenging because the present legislation does not give any authority, whether it's the police or the Coast Guard, any authority, that level of that leverage that will allow them to control the situation. So I am very heartened that both the Minister of National Security and the Minister of Tourism have seen the need for us to revisit that particular process. I have passed on information on the Marine Sport Bill to the Minister of Tourism. The Minister of National Security has given us the assurance that he's going to collaborate with the Minister of Tourism, and we're hoping that something would come out of that. And on Sunday, we had a long session with the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Tourism at the Magdalena. What I want to speak to with respect to that is that we have got a commitment from the Minister, and this is important, the Minister of Finance, that we will meet in July to give a thorough review of the Tobago House of Assembly budget allocation, its projections, philosophy, so that we have a more professional evaluation and hopefully decisions that would redound to the development of Tobago. In the past, as I've indicated before, it was more an exercise in arithmetic. We expected the budget to be scrutinized rigorously, even critiqued. We have no problem with that, because we think that the budget is based on very sound economic principles. But we are also very adamant that if Tobago's economy is really to take off in the way that it should, it needs some impetus. It needs a central government which understands the underpinnings of the Tobago budget and the Tobago economy, and is able to respond and is able to assist. And I was very pleased that the minister saw the need for us to meet and have some serious discussions, and that he has committed to having these discussions held by the end of July, early August, before giving enough time before the budget is presented so that Tobago's views can in fact become an integral part of that. Discussion with the Minister of Tourism, again, we were able to recognize that there are some serious challenges still facing the tourism sector. And on that score, I wish to announce that the Secretary of Tourism is now is leading a team to Germany. And then when she returns, the administrator will lead a team to the United Kingdom. It's really a twofold mission. One mission is to speak to the tour operators and to bring additional tour operators on board so that we can increase our presence or improve our presence in the major markets and be able to ensure that our marketing and the persons who market for us are very Tobago focused in the way in which they do business. It is also meant to firm up discussions with new airlines, one in Germany, and of course to crystallize our relationship with our long-standing partners, Condor, because we understand that we are at what I would consider the tipping point in Tobago's tourism recovery, and that what happens over the next 6 months to a year will determine the direction in which we are going. But so that we will be doing everything that is possible, and one of the areas that we'll be discussing with the minister is the whole question of additional funding for marketing, because we accept the fact that Tobago's spend for marketing is significantly lower than most of our rivals even in the Caribbean, countries that are as financially strapped as we are, and therefore we need to level the playing field in that particular respect. However, all of us in Tobago must understand that the situation is not going to improve except, one, we have the necessary improvements at the airport, and then, of course, a commitment to the construction of a new airport terminal. Our airport in Tobago does not compare favorably to most of the airports in the region, and that's a fact. And that is a deterrent, and something has to be done. We have been promised in Tobago over many years, and that promise has been repeated by at least 3 ministers in this regime, and to date nothing significant is happening at Crown Point or at the Arthur N.R. Robinson Airport, and that has got to stop. That something has to change with respect to that. And Caribbean Airlines has to buy in to the fact that it has an integral role to play in the recovery and development of the tourism sector. Caribbean Airlines made a presentation on Sunday, and to be quite frank, they impressed nobody. Nobody got any indication that the airline was serious about its role in the development of the tourism sector and the development of Tobago. And except the Caribbean airline mindset changes quickly and changes drastically, Tobago's tourism sector is going to remain in trouble. Even from the perspective of the domestic tourism and making it more attractive, so that Tobago, which is closer, where the cost is cheaper, making it more attractive than our rivals. Caribbean Airlines does not even seem committed to that, and I am not comforted by what I've got from Caribbean Airlines, what I got from Caribbean Airlines in the past, and what I'm getting from Caribbean Airlines now. And finally, I don't normally do this, but I think I need to share one thing with you. I was forced to write a letter to the administrators because something was happening, or something is happening, that is troubling me. And I decided to proact Now, I want to explain how this process works. All public agencies, divisions, the assembly ministries have to be audited. And there's a process. The Auditor General will send in officers to a division, to a department, to a unit. And they will examine the records, because that's all they have, the records. They don't go and interview people, they deal with the records. And these records will indicate what financial transactions were made and whether there's documentation, and it's very important, whether there's documentation to prove that these financial transactions were conducted according to the various procurement and other regulations. If the document is not found, in other words, if they recognize that the document is not found to support the transaction, then what they will do is that they would write what is called a management letter. And what the management letter will say is simply this: I have not seen, or the information, the supporting documentation was not presented to me. You will then respond and say either that I have now found it, here it is, or I cannot find it, or there is not this document, but there is another document that maybe will achieve the same objective. Now, if you do not respond, the Auditor General will operate as if the document is not available. And therefore, when the report is submitted, the report will say, supporting documents were not seen for transaction in the sum of $10 million. Or supporting documentation was not seen because of so-and-so. Or this contract was entered into, or these monies were paid off, but I didn't see the contract. So it is very important that management letters are responded to in a professional and thorough manner. I know the challenges, because sometimes the Auditor General will come in 2011 to audit 2005. So you have to go into those dusty vaults, look through all the files and find the document. But you have to do it. Because if you do not do it, a year down the road, the report will come out, and you know what happened after the 2003, 2004. And you know who gets the blame. And you know whose name they palaver over the street, over the radio and the television and the public domain. The fact that we did not get the letter, that we did not make the transaction, that we did not produce or not produce is of no consequence. Because in the public domain, the buck stops here, and it should. But I'm saying that in that context, I was very concerned when I recognized that in many cases, the respected officials had not yet even responded to the Auditor General.
Thank you for tuning in to another Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council media briefing for the week ending July 20th, 2013.